Welcome to Discussions with the Writer Fred, right here at Black Video Network in San Antonio, Texas. Before we get started, I just hope everyone got out there and voted yesterday, because remember, if you don't vote, you don't count. So today, I'm so pleased. We have Memorial Day coming up next Monday, and so we figured here at a Discussion with the Writer Fred and Black Video Network, it would be appropriate, nothing would be more appropriate than we talk to the folks that are now part of the Tuskegee Airmen Association. And so I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Marv K. Abrams to the studio. Welcome, Marv.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Marv is a 26-year-old military veteran, but other than that, I'm going to let Marv tell you all about himself. Go right ahead.
Wow. All right. Let's see. Well, as I said, my name is Marv Abrams. I'm currently the regional president for the Central Region of Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, the organization that is here to protect and preserve the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. Prior military, as you stated, and that 26 years, most of it, last years of it here in San Antonio, where I've made my home now with my wife of over 26 years and almost 38 years now. So we are glad to be here and glad to be a part of just the local community and helping to push and continue with the legacy of the Airmen.
Well, congratulations to your wife.
Thank you. I'll pass it on. I will.
Please do.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, Marv, let's get started. Tell our viewers why Tuskegee Airmen are important to the culture of black people and the black culture.
Okay, excellent question. Tuskegee Airmen. Most folks know the Tuskegee Airmen, hopefully know the Tuskegee Airmen, but the overview of the Tuskegee Airmen is they were the men and women that were the first African-American military organization in the United States Armed Forces. And so their history, their legacy, the accomplishments they made, and their level of excellence are what make them part of African-American culture and African-American history overall, and for all of us to be proud of.
Okay, that's the question. That's where I want to go. So our young need to know about the Tuskegee Airmen, yes. And because our young, I believe, need as many heroes as they can get. Don't you feel that way?
I definitely feel that way, especially as times have been as they are here recently.
Yeah.
The Tuskegee Airmen are definitely heroes. As we said, they started off as the first African-American, primarily pilots is what most people know them for. But not only that, they were also the first, as I said, in the military of the United States. But they were truly heroes in so much that everything was against them, and yet they still were able to strive and to excel in what they did. They have a history that started off as fighter pilots, but they also were bomber pilots. They also were every aspect of aviation within the military. And from that, they were able to expand into just about every part of American society. So they give us something to definitely be proud of. No matter where it is you look, no matter what portion of industry or aviation that you look into, there was some aspect of the Tuskegee Airmen included in it.
Okay. You know, if you look at our history in the military, going all the way back to the Revolutionary War, coming up to the Civil War, up through the Buffalo Soldiers, yes. World War I, and then Tuskegee Airmen, there's been opposition. Always been opposition. And can you just expand a little on the kind of opposition they ran into?
Yes. The Tuskegee Airmen were an experiment. If we go all the way back, and as you stated, Fred, all the way back to before World War II, before World War I, in 1925, there was a War Department study and report that was done that basically said African Americans were incapable of being able to handle anything of advanced technology, anything of other than basic mechanics. The Tuskegee Airmen, as they started and had the opportunity to join into the military, and even that was an experiment in itself, that it was basically a fact that was said, we know you can't do it, and we're going to prove you can't do it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to give you this opportunity for you to fail. And that's where it started from. Yeah. So that pressure was on those airmen right from the very beginning. And from that, they were given the opportunity to have a aviation squadron. But that squadron was in Alabama. And as most folks know, even to this day, there are some trials and tribulations of the Deep South for African Americans. So putting their location and their actual military base in Alabama was the first, if not a strike, at least obstacle.
Do you think it was done deliberately?
It was definitely done deliberately.
Okay.
The one good thing of it, and in most cases, part of the legacy and part of the history that we can pass on to our young folks, regardless of age, whether they're young at heart or young of age,
Okay.
is that a lot of times the obstacles that are put in front of you, they're put there for you to overcome. And if you don't have those obstacles, you don't find out what you can really accomplish yourself. So putting their school there, we had Tuskegee, or at that time, Tuskegee Institute.
Right, yeah.
Which is now
Booker T.
Tuskegee
Washington.
University. Right, with Booker T. Washington. They were one of the schools that actually had a internal flight program. But putting a military program there, where in the Deep South was obviously going to be an obstacle for them. They couldn't go outside of the base. They couldn't go into the town without having some type of trouble or some type of difficulty. They put it in a location where they thought they weren't going to be able to fly. But as it turned out, Tuskegee, Alabama, that area ended up having clay. So once you made something in that clay, it stayed. So once again, another obstacle in regards to the environment became something that was actually a benefit to them.
You know, I find it interesting. I was just thinking about that. Booker T. Washington, in his day, talked against us doing anything but being a farmer or a maid.
True.
Because he said we weren't ready. So I find it very ironical that they would put this in an institution where the founder had felt that way. So what do you know of any of the obstacles that they confronted? Do you know of any of them?
Well, they obviously, as we said, just being in the Deep South first and foremost.
Yeah, in
1940.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes. But the Civilian Pilot Program, or the Civilian Pilot Act of that time, gave 6 African American schools, or what we would now call historically black colleges and universities, that had programs or the opportunity to start programs in aviation. So,
well, wait, go back on that.
Yes.
They gave, at that time, they gave these schools, what, the opportunity, funding, or what?
They did. 1939, if I remember correctly, was when America could see the stars of World War II coming.
Yeah.
And Europe had taken on the responsibility of training civilian pilots in order to have them ready to move into a military capability. So America took that on as well. But in doing so, there had been quite a bit of push from the NAACP, from all the black networks and newspapers, to try to make sure that America understood that African Americans, being African Americans, wanted to be part of America and show what they could do.
Yeah.
So in doing so, they gave them the opportunity to actually start schools or training programs for flight if they didn't already have one started, and gave them funding.
You know, that's amazing. What you said, they wanted to be a part of America, when America didn't want us at that time to be a part of it. We've really been loyal, haven't we?
We've truly been loyal over the years, as you said, back even before, to Revolutionary War, through current day. African Americans have always been loyal. They've always been loyal to their country. They've always tried to find a place to fit in.
That's
and
right.
to exceed.
Yeah. So where are you right now with the Tuskegee Airmen Association?
Right. The Tuskegee Airmen Association now has about 56 chapters nationwide.
Oh, really?
Yes. So the national organization and then the chapters throughout the United States. We actually even have a chapter in the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
So those chapters are there at a local level to try to continue the legacy of the airmen. We do this through both the history side of things in regards to just educating individuals on the history of the airmen, but also from an education standpoint, all of our chapters have some type of a scholarship program, an educational awards program, or a STEM program to open up opportunities for young men and ladies to be able to see what's involved in aviation and what's involved just in technology overall.
Okay, we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk a little more about how you're reaching out to our young to bring them in and some of these programs. And I also want to talk to you about Red Tails.
Excellent.
We'll be right back with discussion with the writer Fred, with Marv Abrams from the Tuskegee Airmen Association.
Yes.
Veterans, when you're struggling, soon becomes later, becomes someday, becomes when. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello, this is Cornell with Frost Bank.
Hi there, this is Terry with Frost.
Good evening, this is Franklin.
This is Robert with Frost.
Hello, this is Rosemary with Frost Bank.
Nothing to do this week? Don't miss another event. Go to blacksinsanantonio.com for our event calendar. The home of the largest business directory in San Antonio with an African American focus. Sign up today for our weekly e-blast and text message alerts. Help us make this a better community. Connect, empower, grow.
Welcome back to Discussion with the Writer Fred. I'm here with Mr. Marv Abrams, who's the Central Regional President of Tuskegee Airmen, Inc. What area does that take into consideration?
The Central Region of Tuskegee Airmen, Inc. is 19 chapters, everything up through Michigan, through Wisconsin.
To Michigan?
Yes, through Michigan, over to Nebraska, down through Alabama, and then down through Texas.
And most of Texas?
All of Texas.
All of Texas.
All of Texas.
Okay.
We have 2 chapters in Texas, one here in San Antonio and one in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to talking about the youth.
Oh, yeah.
They're very important.
Definitely.
And we all have to do our part for what's happening to our young people. So, what's the Airmen doing? What are you all doing?
Well, the Airmen, as I said, primarily, each of our chapters has a local program, and we kind of let them be flexible in that. Everyone automatically thinks because it's the Tuskegee Airmen and that they were pilots, and that's the only thing we concentrate in. But we concentrate on not just aviation, but all areas of STEM. That's science, technology, engineering and math, and the arts as well, because it's all part of being well-rounded as an individual. So the programs that we have, Fred, for our youth include both the aviation side, but also just opening it up to let them know whatever opportunities are available.
Okay.
For every pilot, there's normally 10 people behind that pilot. Okay. For every aircraft, there are the individuals that maintain the aircraft. There's the science that goes into developing aircraft and all the other avenues around it, even down to feeding and taking care of the general health of those that are involved.
And so this could help a young man who works with you all. I mean, that puts him on a good path if he wants to go in the Air Force, right?
Or a young lady now.
Or a young lady, I'm sorry. I apologize. Or a young lady.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
If they want to go in the Air Force.
Yeah, if they want to go in the Air Force, or for that matter, any branch of the service, or just be a part of just industry in general. Okay. And that's what we try to make sure that we're not a recruiter for the military, even though the recruiter is a strong supporter of Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated. But at the same time, those opportunities are there. And of course, that's where the start of the legacy of the airmen comes from, is from the military. But there's always life after the military for anyone. Right. And you take those skills, that knowledge, that aptitude and attitude that you get through military service and take it and go forward with it. And that's what the airmen did themselves. After World War II, many stayed in the military, but there was a vast number that went out into society and just took those jobs and just blossomed.
Yeah. What's your membership here in San Antonio?
We normally average about 50 members here. We love to grow it. It's always been a goal for the organization to reach 100. And anyone that's on that aspect, anyone that's interested in being a member of the Tuskegee Airmen, the San Antonio chapter, it's open to anyone. And that's the one thing most people don't believe, Fred, is that you have to be military.
You had to be black.
Okay, you don't have to.
You don't, no.
Okay.
We want anyone and everyone that is interested in continuing that legacy, and also anyone that's interested in just helping youth to understand their worth.
Okay. Do you get much support from large corporations?
We do. We welcome support from large corporations, and we have several that sponsor us now. And then also they are able to bring in just different portions of their technology, their industry, to show that those opportunities are available as well.
Okay. Let's switch subject for just 1 minute. Well, before we do that, tell me how many members were there of the Tuskegee Airmen?
Wow, okay. Let's see, out of the Tuskegee Airmen overall were somewhere around 15,000 people, actually, Fred. That includes all the pilots as well as all the support that went into it as well.
It was all segregated.
Primarily segregated. There were some Caucasians that were involved in the program from a military standpoint that were both positive and negative proponents, let's say, of the Tuskegee experience overall, but that 15,000 includes all of them. From that, we can break it out that there were 992 actual pilots that
There were
actually
that many?
graduated. Yes, almost 1,000.
And was it from Tuskegee Institute where they graduated?
The majority, all the pilots, all the fighter pilots, and that's when we get into the specifications. You had single engine and twin engine, and the single engine were the fighter pilots. There you had somewhere around 600. But you also had a totally different group that were twin engine or bomber pilots.
Oh, okay.
That's a story that most folks don't even realize was part of the overall Tuskegee experience.
Oh, and didn't they fly protected for other bombers?
Yes,
I think
they started off, and let's go back. There were four fighter squadrons. The 99th, the 100th, the 301st, and the 302nd.
Okay.
There were also 4 bomber squadrons, the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Now, out of the fighter squadrons, they primarily did pursuit, and their primary role during World War II was just what you said, Fred, being escorts for the bombers that were over in Europe at the time. So those individuals, there were 355 pilots that actually went overseas and flew combat missions in Europe and Italy.
Okay. Did they ever do the Pacific?
No, they did not. The bomber squadrons or the bomber group itself was scheduled to go into the Pacific environment, and just at that time, the atomic bomb negated their having to actually deploy.
Oh, okay.
But they, even though they didn't get to serve overseas, they served quite a significant role here in the United States on just fighting racism overall. And it's one incident that's known as the Freeman Field Mutiny is where they actually did peaceful demonstration on trying to integrate.
When was this?
1945.
Really?
Yes. Yes, and that's part of what it goes back to your original question on where do the Tuskegee Airmen fit into African American culture overall. Those bomber pilots there were officers, full-fledged military officers, but they were not allowed to go into the officers' club at Freeman Field in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
Because, of course, as we said, we had those military commanders and leadership that some were for the program and some that did everything against the program. And
you said they protest?
They actually, what they tried to do was to peacefully and professionally integrate or go into that club because they were officers. It's the officers' club. So they were turned away. And so they continued this through almost 2 days in the beginning of April in 1945 at Freeman Field. And 107 of them were actually arrested while they were in the military, while we were at war. And then because that commander did not want to give them access to the same officers' club that he gave to the whites.
These men had flown flights, had flown over Europe.
Well, these were the bomber pilots, so they never got a chance to go. And that was just part of the overall, I won't call it conspiracy, but just the overall impact of trying to keep the airmen and just that entire progress down.
But even though they didn't go, they're an extension of the men that did do this.
Most definitely.
I mean, talk about the hypocrisy. Oh, come on.
Yes, yes.
Oh, jeez.
Right, and direct opposite of that, you had a Colonel Parrish that was the training officer at Tuskegee and became the commanding officer there, who basically put his entire career at stake to get the fighter pilots into Europe and into World War II. But you also had a commander that was at Freeman Field in Indiana that kept them down, tried to keep them down, I'll say, had them arrested, moved them around from place to place so they couldn't get established at the exact same time.
Oh my gosh, jeez.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what we said. There's a lot of stories behind the Tuskegee Airmen experience that are unknown or untold or unpublicized so much that just add more pride to what their overall legacy is.
Has anyone written about this?
Oh yes, there's several books about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Tell our viewers what some of the books is.
Well, you have some of the actual individuals who were Tuskegee Airmen. Chappie James was a Tuskegee Airman.
Okay.
He was the first four-star general, first black four-star general in the United States Air Force. He has an autobiography called Chappie that goes into his story and his history. Recently, we just lost Brigadier General Charles McGee, who was another Tuskegee Airman who has a book out that he had his autobiography. But there are also 2 or 3 other books that are called Red Tales, of course, and of course one that is the Tuskegee Airmen by Mr. Casso that talked about the overall story. But it's just a matter of just look it up. We have Google, we have technology.
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
quite a few. I would caution to make sure that you go to reliable sources. And the organization is one of those sources.
So they can go to the organization and get these books?
Yes, you can go to the organization. Our website is TuskegeeAirmen.org. And there's a link there that goes into our press release as well as just the history of the airmen itself.
Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about Red Tails.
All right.
Okay, we'll be right back with you. Discussions with the writer Fred and Mr. Marv Abrams from Tuskegee Airmen.
2021 is complete. Good or bad, you made it through. The year of many firsts. It will not be easily forgotten. The Black Book Yearbook will help you capsule the year that was 2021. Own your part of history. Get your yearbook today at blacksinsanantonio.com. For the latest news and community activities, visit our companion site, blackvideonews.com, celebrating over 10 years of documenting the community.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Welcome back to Discussion with the writer Fred. I am here with Mr. Marv Abrams of the Tuskegee Airmen, Inc.
Yes.
Let's go back to the mutiny. What happened?
All right. As we said, April 1945, there was a number 1 and number 2 officers club. And number 1 club was the quote-unquote club for the active officers, and number 2 was only for trainees. The only problem with that is that those airmen that were there were all officers as well, and they were truly officers. They were not in training. So as they attempted to integrate and go into Officers Club number 1, they were stopped at the door and eventually arrested. So what ended up happening from there, they were arrested, put on house arrest, and mind you, Fred, this was in the middle of World War II. We were still at war at the time. And you had active pilots incredibly incarcerated, basically, on house arrest during the war. God. So the fact that they even did this in the first place and felt so strongly about it, because we were at war, they could have been put in the stockade. They could have been charged with treason. Yeah. They still saw that there was a need to take this on. And in doing so, eventually, all of them but 3 were actually cleared of any charges, or at least not cleared of charges, but were not court-martialed. Mm-hmm. The 3 that were brought up for court-martial, 2 were acquitted. The last one was actually discharged, and he actually was going in for a law degree. No, not honorable. Was actually put out of the service and he could not practice law because most of the airmen were truly educated. We had PhDs, you had master's degrees, everything else. He was going for a law degree but could not go and pass the bar because his court-martial conviction was basically a felony. It wasn't until 1995 when the organization has an annual convention. During that time frame in 1995, it was brought back up to the leadership of the Air Force at that time, and the Chief of Staff announced that the records of all of those airmen, whether they were still with us or not, had been cleared of any indication of any felony or any type of offense. And there was a big party held for that one surviving airman that had been court-martialed.
Wow.
But we finally got justice for what was really just a peaceful demonstration. And that demonstration was actually part of the framework for the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s.
Oh, great.
Because they showed that a peaceful demonstration could actually work and have an effect.
Yeah, wow. Yep. So the pardon was done under the Clinton administration, I guess.
Yes.
95.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned a convention. So you all have a convention every year?
We do. We do. The organization, national organization, has a national convention every year. It rotates through our 3 regions, the Western, the Central, and the Eastern. And so as we had to take a couple of years off there because of pandemic situations.
Yes.
But we're trying to get that started again. And actually, September of this year, here in San Antonio, we plan on having a convention, which will be the grouping or the meeting of all of the chapters, all the members of the organization. It's our actual annual business meeting, but at the same time, we also open it up to the public. We'll have events, both mealed events and educational events going on, as well as youth activities that'll go on during that time frame as well.
Where's it going to be held?
It'll be downtown at the Hilton Del Plaza, right there on Market Street. It'll be the, if I remember correctly, the 14th through the 16th of September. Yes.
Will you come back
Sure.
on the show right around that time so we can get you some support?
Definitely, we'd be more than happy to come back.
Okay.
I'll even try to bring some of the folks. If we have,
that would be great.
If we have any of our airmen that are willing and able, we'll bring them in.
Bring them in, yes.
Definitely.
Yes. So we had airmen that lived here, right?
Yes, right here in San Antonio.
You want to talk about them?
Sure. Unfortunately, we are, with all of those of the greatest generation, as it's known as, and the Tuskegee Airmen overall, we're losing our...
Can I stop you right there for a second?
Yes.
You're right. You hit it on the nose. They were the greatest generation. That man who wrote the book, The Greatest Generation, only talked about whites. True. He left out the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes.
And I commented on that back then. What an error. Yes. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just had to say that. No. So go right ahead.
Not a problem, not a problem. And as we said, we know that they are part of a great legacy.
Oh my God, yes.
And they have set and kind of set the bar for the rest of us on what we can do. Right here in San Antonio, we had a group of airmen, of individuals that became Tuskegee Airmen. Both on the pilot side as well as the enlisted side. We had included in that Dr. Granville Cox, who was originally from Arkansas but came to San Antonio and got here and stayed. He was a dual qualified pilot, both fighter pilot and bombardier. And then we also had Thomas Ellis, who was an administrative sergeant major. Mm-hmm. He was the first enlisted member of the 301st Squadron over in Italy. You had Warren Usan, who was a flight instructor that was here. Theodore Johnson, James Kelly. We also had John Mule Miles.
Baseball player, right?
Negro baseball league player.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And ironically, although he was a baseball player, he was also a civilian worker at Kelly Field during World War II. And he was part of a group known as the 49+1 that were civilian workers that went down to Tuskegee and provided training.
Oh, okay.
It was 49+1 because it was 49 men and 1 lady. So, and then here most recently, just this past end of April, we lost one of our original airmen here, Mr. James Bynum, who was 101 years old.
101, okay.
Yeah, so now we're left with only one surviving original airman here in San Antonio, and that's Dr. Eugene Daricotte.
Do you think we could get him on the show?
I'm not sure, but we can definitely try.
That would be great. That
All
would
right.
be wonderful.
I'll take that as a tasking, and I'll get back to you.
Absolutely. We would love to have him on the show to talk about his experiences. So we're getting ready to closing. So what message, as the Central Regional President, do you want to tell our viewers?
Wow. Just to take a look at history and definitely take a look at the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. There's an organization, of course, that I'm a member of and representative of, but that's not the only way in which you can help preserve and protect and perpetuate the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. The fact that the opportunities are there for you to bring your youth in or to help us in just cultivating youth so that they can understand the rich history that they're part of. The airmen were just a part of it, but they were a great part of it, and they set the path and set the bar for all of us.
Yeah, and we are all part of the Tuskegee Airmen.
This is true.
We are all part of it.
We all have an effect. They had an effect on every bit of our lives.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Abrams, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Discussion with the writer Fred and giving us a broader view of the Tuskegee Airmen as we go into Memorial Day. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Please,
Thank you.
yeah. This is Fred Williams, discussion with the writer Fred, telling our story our way.